Well, welcome to Book Nerds, a book club for doctor entrepreneurs, the podcast where we explore top books on leadership, business, and personal growth to help doctors and practice owners build thriving practices and fulfilling careers. I'm Kyle Klute, joined by my co-host, Dr. Brianna Rhue, and Dr. Aaron Werner. We're not just doctors, we're passionate business leaders who believe the right book can transform your practice and life. Each month, we break down an inspiring book, challenge each other with fresh ideas, and share actionable insights to help you lead better, work smarter, and live well. So today we're talking about Storybrand 2.0. So who's excited about that, guys?
I'm excited,
this was
man.
A good one.
It's changed everything. I can't watch TV anymore.
Oh,
That's
really?
right. Ruins everything.
or listen to a song. Damn it.
Yeah?
It's weird when you figure out how you're getting manipulated, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And the formula is so simple, it's not even that hard to manipulate me.
That's right. So yeah, we're reading Donald Miller's, or we read Donald Miller's Storybrand 2.0, which I think it was written the first time. The original Storybrand book was probably written maybe 2015 or 16 or something like that.
No, I think it was earlier.
Was it? Okay, maybe earlier than that. So this is the 2.0 version, so the updated version, and this was recommended by our co-host, our guest here, Daniel Palmer from Morther Creative Agency. So, Daniel, you're joining us today. You want to give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I'm a Storybrand guide, so that's kind of my connection with Storybrand. Ran across it back in 2018, I guess. I have a fractional CMO agency of sorts, so I work with optometrists, Texas native, so here in Temple, Texas, where I am. And yeah, love Storybrand. I've been a guide since 2020. My claim to fame is that we were the first digital class. So Donald Miller certifies guides to actually implement Storybrand. And in 2020, of course, we all know what happened. So we went from in-person to digital. It was a little bit of a mess, but it worked out. And it's been a really phenomenal way to transform how marketing happens, how we do messaging for clients. And so I love it. And I think it's impactful. I think any size business, any size practice could use it. So it's a little bit about me.
It's awesome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, right out of the gate, the number one question that I've been taking away is, and maybe we should get into the whole Storybrand process, but just asking myself who the hero is. And it hurt because I realized quickly that I'm not a hero. I'd retire the cape and the mask, and it completely flipped everything on its head. Certainly in the practice, right? On why we can't do something, how I engage with patients, how I engage with staff. Don't tell my kids, but I even think about that when I'm talking with them now, right? How can I make them the heroes, or help them see that? I guess not see they're heroes, but like how do I engage, work this situation so that I'm not the one solving their problems. I'm just the one guiding them along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we back up, what the book is showing you is really how storytelling, we all remember stories over facts. And we're bombarding our staff, we're bombarding our teams, we're bombarding our patients with data point after data point after data point to get them to buy something. Mm-hmm. So the framework is you have to make, in this case, our patients are the hero, whereas the doctors are their guides to get them the care that they want. But we are confusing the daylights out of them in every form of the imagination. So I recently heard, it's a Gary Gerber quote that says, optometrists will talk themselves out of any sale.
That's a good quote.
And we do that. And so what we want you to take away, or my biggest takeaway that I hope people get from the hour that we're going to be here, is to get more clear on your message. So if you're not clear, that leads to confusion, and that leads to patients walking out of our doors. The more clear you are, like my myopia pitch, I've got that down into 2 minutes. Kyle and Aaron got their dry eye pitch down into that to sell IPLs and RF. how are we confusing our patients all the time? And even in the book, he's like, even eye doctors can use this. Did you guys catch that?
I didn't see that. That's wild.
No.
I didn't catch that. That's great.
It does. It was like right at the very end. He's like, even eye doctors can use this. It's right here. It says the best, it could just as well have been an eye doctor or a massage therapist to use this work.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Good call out.
So that's the gist. But excited again to dive in.
And I think, the clarity is huge. And, his form of creating clarity is through story. And specifically what you were saying, Aaron, is that the biggest mistake we all make is we position ourselves and our companies or our practices as the hero and not the guide. Mm-hmm. And so, he talks about, obviously we can go through like the 7 steps of a story, the Storybrand framework with the 7 steps there. But his big kind of premise is just that we make the mistake in our marketing, in our language, and in the way we talk to our patients, because we probably believe ourselves that we're the hero, and when we do all these things for our patients, we want to, we lack a little humility sometimes. To think that we're the hero of their story, but the reality is people are the hero of their own story. So Aaron, you are a hero. You're a hero of your own story, and I'm a hero of my own story, right? But what we're looking for is we're always looking for not a hero to help us. We're all looking for a guide to help us follow and accomplish our own goals and carry out our own journey. So I think that was the big light bulb thing for me originally when I read the first one, like, oh my gosh. And then you start looking at other companies' slogans, you start looking at anybody else in healthcare. I mean, just think about healthcare in general, how much hospitals and practices position themselves as the greatest hero to their patients of all time. It's like that seems like the gist of their marketing for the most part.
Let me ask you guys this. So in your takeaway from the hero and the guide things, that's kind of the baseline premise, right? How are medical practices, how are optometrists positioning themselves as the hero? Like what are they doing in their marketing, in their communication that makes them feel like they're the people that matter, like they're the hero of the story? What was your takeaway from that? How would you apply that to your own practices?
That's a great question. I think that it's there's a couple ways to answer it. For me, I think as a practice owner, I look at the dollars I invest, the time I invest, and I want credit, right? Kind of like as a husband, right? I want them to notice when I take out the trash and wash the dishes. So I want my patients to see that I just spent, this much money on new technology, right? Yeah, Lindsay doesn't listen to this, thankfully, so I can speak freely. Although she's going to listen to this one, but. I think that we want recognition for stuff that matters to us but doesn't matter to them. I think we were taught in school and that we were bestowed this mantle of that we're the ones who are saving sight. We are the ones who are improving life, right? That is your job, your job, your job. So that's what I do. And then I think it manifests itself negatively in a sense that we get upset because I've got a glaucoma patient that won't use their drops. And I've educated them as much as I can, right? Or I get really upset because I helped a challenging refractive patient and finally got their prescription right, yet they went to a big box store as any optical. They didn't buy from me. Or they took their contact lens prescription and they went to 1-800 because I did all this work until they understand that I spent extra time for them, but they could get it for, perceived $5 less a box somewhere else. And so I think that we've tied our emotional sense and our emotional identity to being that hero and wanting the recognition. And we get frustrated when we're not seen that way.
Yeah. I think it can show up in some either over communication or complex communication. We all know that doctors like big words and things that most people don't use on a everyday basis for the rest of us.
That's a really kind way of saying that, Daniel.
Yeah. I'm there's my filters on today. My filters on. Yeah.
Hey, there's no filter on this podcast. That's what makes it fun.
We called ourselves nerds out of the gate. You can just
That's right. You're already yeah.
I love what that leads to, Daniel, where he says the processing information, it demands you to burn calories.
Yeah.
The more calories that you have to burn to understand something as it leads to confusion. And in our cases, like Aaron just said, the frustration of them walking to online retailers, the frustration to them walking to a big box store after you just helped save their vision, right?
Yeah.
So transitioning back to what a hero actually does, right? You have your external problems, your internal problems, and your philosophical problems that we all have to solve. So reflecting on when patients come in, I don't think we're asking the right questions to really be their guide.
Yeah.
Could you maybe give us some questions that we could ask our patients to take care of? You know, people buy because of their internal problems first. Like, how do we what would be the best thing? Because you obviously have been to a couple optometrists and you deal with a couple of optometrists. What are some questions that how we can help our patients better be their guide, even in our teams, because it's different, right? Because now our team is the hero, we're their guide to get them to solve their problem.
That's a great question. I think the first piece is to really identify that problem. So if you kind of jump into the framework slightly, is we've identified if the character of your story, which by the way is not you, it's the hero, right? That's your patient. There's a problem they're trying to solve, and there's something they want. There's an aspirational vision they have of what they want for their own vision, for their life, for their family, for their kids, whatever it is. You're identifying that, and then you're identifying what the problem is. So it's coming to agreement. That's a good first part in any exam or any conversation, is coming to it. So this is what I'm hearing you say. You're talking to your patient. This is what I'm hearing you say. This is what your experience is. You're in front of computer screens 8 hours a day and you're experiencing headaches. Do we agree on that? Then that's a kind of premise to make sure you're on the same page. And as a guide, when you find out that problem, then the first thing to do is say, well, here's a plan, here's the solution. So kind of going through the framework a little bit more. Here's the thing that, once we agree upon the problem, here's the thing that we believe would help you. And then put it into their court. The great thing that we miss a lot, and I'm kind of skipping ahead on the framework, but the call to action is one that tends to get overlooked, but is incredibly powerful in your line of work because you have only moments, right? You're moving through each of these phases in literal minutes. Like you said, your 2-minute pitch, right? It's not really a pitch. It's really just more of a discovery. And so that call to action is, would you like me to bring in our optician to help you pick the right lens or help you look at NeuroLens? Or so you have a solution, you know the thing, and rather than try to sell it to them, you're coming to an agreement, and you're asking this is the problem you have. Great, we've established. This is the thing that as your doctor, I believe will help remedy that problem for you. And then give them a yes or no. I like a call to action that makes them accept or reject something. Don't say, hey, let me know if you'd like to look at NeuroLens, or let me know if you'd like to pursue dry eye treatment. You say, can we get started on this? Or you say, would you like to talk to our optical side? Or whatever this, make them say, no, not right now, or yes, that sounds great. And that's a big sales thing too. That's the thing that if you give someone actually something they have to accept or reject, that's a very clear and powerful call to action. But sometimes we feel salesy. We don't want to say, just let us know. And that's not helping our patients at all because they don't know. You're the guide. You need to help them actually make that decision. And the answer could be no or not right now, but at least you have clarity and they have clarity on what the solution is.
So that question at the end is, would you like me to bring in my optician to further discuss the treatment options that we have available for you to solve the problem that you're having in front of your computer 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
So I think when we're doing, go ahead.
Well, just as you're scheduling the appointment at the end for the follow-up, it's not let us know when you'd like to schedule next. It's these dates work for you. That's a sales thing. We all know that. You get on calls with people and you say, hey, here's the next call. Let's establish the next engagement. And then they may cancel and they may quit, they may not show up, but at least there's established they have the power to say yes or no to whatever your next step is.
I read I can't remember if the book was called Getting to Know or something. It was a sales book that the goal was to get a patient to, obviously they say yes, you're yes, but get past that wavering, and you want to get them to say no or not right now, because at least they committed somewhere on that sales timeline. Yeah. Right, that commitment timeline. If they said, I'm not sure, let me think about it, you don't know where they are. But if they said no, then at least you had a spot that you could work forward from. Right. And you had some sort of commitment from them, as to admitting where they're at.
And I think for the Storybrand piece, the thing so the Storybrand's not really geared for sales, even though it's very applicable to sales, because you're really trying to understand where they are in their story, in their journey. And that's the whole front half of everything. Before you call them to action, you actually have to establish what the problem is, that you have what it takes to solve it, and you have a plan that you've given to them so that you can tell them what to do next. A lot of times we start right out the gate with, here's what we think you should do, without any empathy, without any sort of understanding of problem, and you get people turn off because they're just not ready they don't know that you understand what's going on. They don't believe you. They don't trust you. So you're establishing that trust and empathy in that first half of the conversation.
But Daniel, I'm -2. All I have to do is take off my glasses and I can read. Why can't I read with my glasses on anymore?
You went straight for that one, didn't you, Bray?
There are some objections we cannot overcome with any amount of story branding. Believe me. It's not magic.
I love this part where he says every time we talk about our products to potential customers, or again, patients, because nobody likes us to call our customers patients, guys, they're customers, okay? They have to start running on a treadmill. Literally, they have to jog the whole time that you're talking. How long do you think they're going to pay attention? So when we go into this dry eye spiel or this myopia management spiel, think of your patient that's on this treadmill and the mom that's trying, like her kid's running all over the place, or their eyes are dry and you're giving them 600 things to do. This comes to a clear plan. I think too, it takes just a little bit of time to come up with a 3-step process.
For sure.
And that's really all people can remember. We spit all this jargon at them. They don't care about what a meibomian gland is. Right? Like my dry eye pitch, I'm like, look.
They want to know the lacrimal gland and the feedback mechanism, and there's 25 on the meibomian glands on the bottom and 30 on the top, and it could be inflammation, it might be blockage, it could be non-obstructive, it's just, I know.
I love that. Yeah, when I'm like, look, your lids are a windshield wiper, and they do not wipe down. They go from your eyelids kissing and pulling out oil. Your oil glands are broken. So we have a couple of ways to right now go from hardened butter to softened butter or liquid butter, which is, and I let them answer, heat. You can do that a couple ways. That's it. These are your options.
Yeah. Would you like to move forward? Would you like to try this? Yeah.
Oh,
here's your 3 steps.
That's the part we miss all the time. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today.
In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being.
Get them to make a decision.
I'm good at that outside of optometry. I'm really bad at that inside of optometry.
Uh, I think it's because part of that too is I think as a healthcare professional, you feel like, it kind of goes back to this idea of the guide versus the hero. There is a certain amount of, I want to show my expertise, and so
Absolutely.
I want to share how much I know about dry eye and all the mechanisms and all the treatments, and I want to prove to them that they can trust me. So I go on this, 7 to 10 minute rant about all the little details and all the potential treatment options for them. But at the end of the day, like, if I haven't, and this is why it's been so helpful for me, if I haven't like identified truly with their problem, and we can kind of discuss that step of like, Daniel, you said it, of empathize, like actually
Yeah.
shown empathy with that issue. For example, hey, I know you're frustrated with your dry eye. We have a lot
Yeah.
of patients that are frustrated with that as well.
Yeah.
That's a statement that I've tried to work into my repertoire, because that's making an empathetic statement of like, hey, I hear you, and it's not so much the external problem. When Donald Miller talks about the external problem versus the internal problem versus the philosophical problem, you can state the external problem, and for a dry eye patients, that's just going to be dry,
Right.
gritty eyes. The internal problem is going to be more the emotional. So if you can appeal to that emotional part, hey, I see you're frustrated and I get it.
Yeah.
I appeal to them. Usually I say something like, I've struggled with it too, and then you lead that, and then you step into the solution to the problem. And it makes when I do those things well, it makes the call to action so much easier,
Yeah.
and not necessarily maybe more successful, but it's just easier and less salesy, because it's almost like a natural thing. It's like I actually they need to do this, because I just walked them through this story and I've connected so well with them that the next logical step is for them to do something at our office.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful for me to think of it that way.
No, Kyle, I just want a copy of my prescription.
Can I get
She's
that at
throwing the good ones
1-800?
out.
So I love
need
his part
coffee
too. He
for this
says
call.
the story in a nutshell. So a character who wants something encounters a problem before they can get it. At the peak of their despair, a guide steps into their lives, gives them a plan, and calls them to action. That action helps them avoid failure and experience success. So I think too, if not just in the exam room with what we're trying to do, but also what the industry is trying to do, right? Your reps are coming in as a guide to help you. They're in many locations throughout, your local area, and they have solutions to your problems. But also, he says, after with music, right, with the 7 chords, it also follows rules.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not rules, the music doesn't follow rules, then it's also just noise. And I think right now there's so much noise in how we're taking care of patients, how the industry is leading us in what direction. And it just comes with a framework of asking better questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of back up a little bit on the front half of Storybrand, which sometimes gets overlooked, is why does this matter? And the concept is story is a sense-making device, right? Story. People talk about, I hear clients say this a lot, say, well, people these days just don't pay as much attention as they used to. There may be some truth to that. However, I think it's not, we can sit and watch Netflix for 7 hours in a row, and that seems to work. We seem to actually have a binge watching issue.
One
It's
more
really-
episode to go.
What'd you say?
One more episode to go.
Let's just do one more. But really, it's not that, marketing, it's not that people are not paying attention to your marketing because their attention span's lower. It's because your marketing is not good enough for them to pay attention to. And the point is, if you're talking about yourself, if you're filling that space with all the noise that you can fill and not trying to actually figure out where they are in their journey, they're going to tune you out, because that's the whole concept of I have so many calories to burn mentally every day. That's why we try to start the day with the best thing we can do, right? The most intellectually stimulating or challenging thing we start the day with that. End of the day, we're done. We're fried. Exactly. So by the end of the day, we're done. The calories are burnt. And if you're a mom and you've got 2 kiddos sitting there with you and you're trying to explain all the things that they need to know about their myopia management, and they're thinking, all I got to do is I got to get to school by 4:00. Please get me out of here. Help me fix this thing, whatever I'm dealing with my kids, but help me solve this problem. Do it clearly. Give me a solution. And then I got to go. I got too many calories I'm burning. And this is not helping. This is adding to the noise. So that's kind of based on what you said there, Brianna, just that we get, I think, 7,000 marketing messages a day these days. It's probably more than that now because that's an old number. That's a lot. It's a lot of noise.
That also goes into the part where, we're taught that you need to hear something 8 times to remember it. Well, he's like, it actually is 8 times for you to see it and actually respond to it. That means you have to see something 80 times,
right.
100 times. In optometrist world, like 2,000 times in order before you actually pay attention to something. So again, that is with what's going on with your patients. We're bombarded by so much stuff. And I think they came in for you to solve a specific problem. They want a new pair of glasses or new contacts. And then I've even changed my language into vision plan benefits or medical plan benefits, right? That's so confusing. Kyle, you're really good at explaining the difference between the two. I still can't figure this out. But in the vision plan side, what I've even said is, okay, so now, you have your vision plan benefit, gives you $150 towards a frame. Like, they're already leaned out because I said benefits, which confuse people.
Right.
So what I actually say now is, okay, Daniel, you have a $150 vision plan gift card to use towards any frame in the office.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, what? I've got a gift card? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And now our sales have skyrocketed. So the little words in how you change things or evolve, I know we don't like the word change, really makes a difference, and it really matters in all of the jargon. So again, back to meibomian glands or myopic maculopathy or macular degeneration. They just want to make sure they're not going to go blind.
Right.
So give me the tool and I will buy it. And then you have to pause. You have to wait for them to say yes, or you're going to, again, talk yourself out of the sale.
Yeah. That's the 8-second rule, right? Give them 8 seconds. Count it down. Ask the question and then give them 8 seconds and see what happens. It's going to be forever. It'll feel like an hour and a half.
8 seconds.
8 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the...
You're making a lot of optometrists uncomfortable right now that are listening to that. They're like, what?
Can we just
good.
pause
I
for 8 seconds right now? Just pause. Nobody talk for 8 seconds. That's a long time.
Yeah. It's a weird moment. Aaron, you're on mute. I don't know if I can hear you. There you are.
Well, hopefully nobody's watching and can read lips. No, I said 8 seconds is short unless you're on a bull, and then it's
That's
a
right.
long time. But I loved your point, Brown, about the words we use in the language. I went back and watched the first Star Wars, the original Star Wars, now Episode 4, but and how Yoda interacted and when he used words that Luke didn't know when he was training him, and when he used words he did. And it was interesting to see, he only used those big words when he wanted to make a point, and to talking about something that was completely unknown, right? When he brings in the Force, but he really dumbs it down, and it's clear that Yoda's smarter than Luke will ever be. But it was kind of neat to see how he interacted with Luke as a character. And I also really liked in the book when he talks about the characteristics of the hero and the guide.
Yeah.
Because we think of the hero as like Mr. Incredible, right? I can do everything, all these crazy things, when really it's that weak, kind of helpless, doesn't know anything, maybe has lots of potential but doesn't see it in themselves yet. And the two main examples he uses frequently in the book, both Star Wars and Harry Potter, right? Luke is kind of that weak, whiny little, crybaby, and Harry's great, but again, kind of that, insecure, unsure, weak person. And the exact opposite of what I think of when I think of a hero, where the guide has all the characteristics that we typically apply to a hero. And for me, that was pretty insightful because it made me feel better about not being the hero. because I identified more with the guide, right? At least in the as a doctor clinic sense.
Well, and here you also have to identify the villain, right? So you have the hero, the guide, the villain.
Yeah.
So in a lot of what we do, the villain is, thicker glasses for myopia management or a retinal detachment in their future. The villain is the dryness that they're feeling or their dry eyes where they can't go to parties. The villain is online retailers for contact lens sales. The villain is, I'm going to give you this prescription for a neuro lens and you're not going to be able to get it at one of those big box stores. So that again is what you're guiding them against, is what you don't want to happen. And I don't think we clarify that enough in these conversations, that they have to get shorter. We have to do more than ever in these eye exams. And the confusion that happens at the front desk, like even the villain for, annual supply sales, is my staff isn't trained because I've gotten 4 new staff members. So if we're putting processes in place to help us do this with easy to read pamphlets, easy to use talk tracks. That's why talk tracks become so important, especially if you have associate doctors. You want them to all be on the same page.
Yeah.
Can they all recite what your mission is? Why you're there every day? That's a fun exercise to go through.
Some of what you're saying there too, Brianna, is the villain. The villain's kind of tricky to identify sometimes. When I do a lot of these brand scripts, I don't tend to speak too much to the villain, even though it's very important. I tend to go to the stakes, which is what could happen, because that tends to be a little bit more emotionally charging for people.
Okay.
And they know, so there's something that I could lose. Obviously for vision, that's a huge, huge thing. I think that there's actually data that says people are more afraid of losing their vision than dying. So in your industry, you have an enormous amount of things at stake. And the book said this too. I don't remember the study he said, but there's another study by Robert Cialdini who talks about people are more motivated by loss than they are by gain. So whether it's losing money, I'm losing time, or I lose a friendship or a relationship, whatever, they're more motivated by that than they are to gain whatever the upgrade is. So in your conversations, I don't think you have to be like end of days type conversation. I mean, you don't want people leaving thinking, I really feel terrible now about my life. But you do want to at least communicate what could happen if you don't fix these things. And it's real data. I mean, there's real things to say. If we don't stay on top of this issue, I could very well lose my vision, or there could be some consequences to that. And that can happen in an exam. Again, it doesn't have to be the whole conversation, but it should be clear in here's the problem. Yes, I understand that your patient understands that. And here's what could happen if we don't address this now and start working on this now. And that's a big piece I think gets left out.
I think it is. What's interesting, the villain and the stakes conversation, in reading this, I tried to combine both of them.
Yeah.
And so in the exam room, glaucoma is where I started playing with this. And so instead of saying you could lose your vision, because that seemed like too big, it wasn't connectable enough, if that's a word.
Yeah.
And I really liked the idea of the 3 different challenges, the external, right, which to me felt like you're going to lose vision. What does that mean to a 55-year-old who sees just fine?
Right.
But the internal, where, hey, like you got, grandkids, or you like to drive, whatever, I found that the thing they like, and just, hey, I want you to be able to see your grandkids.
That's good.
Right, until you're gone, because that wasn't losing vision, that connected that emotional piece. I said the same thing, just
emotional.
differently, right? I hit it, and then the villain was the glaucoma.
Yeah.
Right, hey, glaucoma's going to take it away, right? You've got a choice, right? You can use the drops every night and just stay touch base with us quarterly, and we'll make sure that you're good, or you cannot, and we'll just kind of see what happens. But what's at risk is you might I want you to be able to see your kids, your grandkids, and hopefully your great-great-grandkids. And and I've had much more of a lean in and engagement in the last 6 weeks of reading this on patients like that than with the typical story that we told coming out of school, where you're going to lose your vision and I've got to put a drop in and it's going to decrease aqueous outflow or inflow and increase the outflow and crap the damn, right?
You're burning all my calories here, Aaron. I only have a few calories, so you're killing me.
Yeah. But it
We
like it,
do
it
do
hit
that,
home
Aaron.
reading
Like
it.
we're like these are
Right
for
here.
real conversations
Yep.
that we're having. I see it all the time. So
Why do
one
you think
other
you do
thing
that?
here.
Like, what's the why that comes out? What's the thing that makes? Is that just kind of like what you were saying earlier, Aaron, where you just feel like I've done all the work to get to this space. I need to kind of demonstrate that I know
Confidence.
stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Confident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think-
that's a great question though for you, Daniel, is like we want to, I think the reason is we went to so much school, we know this stuff inside and out, and we want to demonstrate that to our patients to try to prove that we are worthy of
Yeah.
caring for them. But how, like, what are some better ways to position ourselves as a guide? You know, what would you recommend?
Don't do that. Start there.
Don't do that.
No, that's it. I think there are. So he uses. I think there's a line where he talks about talking in Morse code, like when he talks to his team. It's just that short, chunky. When we do
The
marketing
grunt
stuff,
effect.
yeah, we try to do stuff that is on the level of like an 8th grade kid. That's how we actually try to write copy, because when you're scanning things, whether it's on your website or in some sort of email you send out or social media, whatever it is, or even just your conversations with patients, you don't need to talk down to people. That's not the point. But you do need to communicate as if you were talking to your kids. So if you've got kids that are 5th grade, 8th grade, whatever you're saying, here's how I would explain it. I don't know if you remember the Michael Scott episode in Office where he says, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. You'll have to go back and get that reference. It's there somewhere. But that's how it is. You want to explain it to people, again, not talking down, but talking to them. You're talking level with them and trying to make it understandable.
I think too that I think we forget that when you clarify something, and you're saying this already, but just to kind of reiterate it, when you clarify something or when you simplify something, just because it's a really big deduction and it may not be like academically perfect in our eye care world, that still induces trust. Like we tend to think if I explain this or communicate the complexities of this issue the best I can, or if I explain all the complexities of this issue, then that will gain more trust from them than if not. But the reality is I think it's probably opposite. What I found is like if I can just make things really simple for somebody and then just say, hey, this is a complex issue, but this is all you need to know, then that is what is better for garnering trust than anything else than having to like over-explain.
So like the mansplaining, womansplaining, OD-splaining.
OD-splain.
Like,
Yeah.
OD-splain, there you go.
We've created a new word.
That's funny.
God.
You know what else I thought I had during my head on this is that like we tie our success and our measurables to a finite number, and when you're telling a story and walking somebody through as a guide, it's not always that may not be the right measurable. So if somebody didn't buy glasses from me, I failed. If they didn't buy contacts from me, I failed. Obviously that's the outcome we want, but it becomes a binary I pass fail. If they didn't take the drops, like I said, or whatever the case is. Whereas when you're the guide, it allows them to still have a choice, which doesn't make me own the full responsibility, but it puts me in a different place to say, okay, well, if they aren't quite there yet, I can still keep working with them. I can still keep coaching them. I can still keep helping them come along. And so it takes that binary, I won, I lost, to we're still working together towards something, and I just need to meet them in some place a little different.
Yeah, that's where I use the word like evaluations over follow-ups. Follow-ups to me mean free. So let's say I've got a kiddo where I really want to start myopia management, and I cannot get the mom on board. I'll try to figure out why. Maybe they're doing an orthodontic treatment, or they're going through something bad with the family. There's just something they're not saying yes, and they're maybe not going to tell you. I am really good about getting that out. But seeing them back in 3 months for an evaluation, or if they think their dry eye is not that bad, see them back in 30 days and do a bigger evaluation. I think we're fitting too much into these comprehensive exams and forgetting that we can bring people back. So what I'm seeing happen with dry eye and myopia management, Aaron, we've had this conversation where it's like they get to the front, like, okay, Daniel, Your copay is $10. Your Optos is $39. Your supply of contacts is $936. The glasses that we're going to get you with your neuro lens is $755. And the dry eye treatment that Dr. Werner's prescribing, he wants you to take these vitamins, he wants you to take these drops, he's going to see you back in 2 weeks for an IPL RF treatment, and your little kiddo that we just saw, we're going to start them in a myopia management treatment that's going to cost us $2,000. But your vision plan is going to give you $150, and you've got a rebate of $450 over here.
That's the treadmill.
That what you...
There's the treadmill.
How many treadmills do we have in our office? Like, maybe that's actually what I'm taking away from this, as when I'm talking, did I actually put the patient on a treadmill?
Yeah. I think what you're talking about there is what I would call just the whole patient journey. You're thinking through from the first visit. They come in, you're trying to figure out why are they here? Is it just for a regular exam, or is there something bothering them? Is there something with their kids? And then you're seeing the full success story for them, and you're almost like a guide does. You're almost kind of predicting. You think about Gandalf, like in the Lord of the Rings. He knows they know what's coming. They know what's happening, and they just reveal piece by piece. And so, when a patient comes in, you're able to identify what's the main thing that's happening now that we can help you solve. We know there's 10 other things that we're going to try to help you do as well, that they may be suffering from or experiencing, or maybe it's a family member or whatever. And you're trying to just move them to the next phase in their journey. Not like in a salesy way, but you are trying to figure out how can I help this person, knowing that it may not be all today. It could be 3 months from now, it could be 6 months or 6 years from now, but you're in it for a long, long journey with them. And if you can identify those steps and then how to move them to that next phase. So here's where you are now. Great. Let's think about this. So the next appointment, what we're going to do is look at this. And that's just a very different mentality. I don't think there's any medical practices that kind of approach medical care that way, where they're trying to, there may be some like in the functional medicine or comprehensive medicine stuff, but not as much in, you've got a thing, I'm going to fix it today, see you when I see you type thing.
Primary care doctors think this way. They're like,
Sure.
You came in for one specific problem. If you start to talk about another problem, they're like, nope, you got to come back in another visit.
Yeah.
Aaron, where do you think we go wrong in, like, how have we gotten down this rabbit hole of so much in one visit?
I was just thinking that, because when I trained for my first marathon, the first time I ran a marathon was race day. And I never ran that distance in training. I never ran 26 miles in training. The furthest I ran in training, I think, was 22 miles. And for some reason, I think that part of it is a little bit of an identity, lack of self-confidence, right? I want to give you instant gratification as opposed to seeing it as a journey. I want to show you right now. We're so excited about the new product or service or toy or whatever we just have, and we know we can fix it, so we know we can get you to that end point so quick. I think that we just lost sight of the entire journey. Sometimes even with staff members, we get frustrated with when we hire them, and in 4 weeks they're not performing how we want. Yeah. When we forget the fact that we went to school for 8 years to get to that point, right? And so we don't give them the same level of grace, because we forget the journey we were on. We just know where we're at right now. Yeah. And so while it being, putting a patient on a treadmill or a customer on a treadmill is not what you want, I think I like the metaphor of looking at the entire journey as a marathon, right? Treating dry eye, treating myopia management, right? Maybe the first step is just acknowledging and signing up for the race. You don't even own running shoes yet. Yeah. Right? Maybe the first step is, hey, you can't sign up for the marathon until you can run a 5K. Let's make 5K the first goal. So maybe getting you onto atropine or in my sight isn't the goal for myopia management. It's like, let's just have you come back and talk about it some more. Yeah. Maybe that's the first step. And so we need to rethink what that journey looks like, and not have the end treatment goal always be the first step. Maybe that's further down the
tying
line.
that back, Aaron, to what you said, like, I think we have gotten to this point of like sale or no sale. They walked or they didn't walk.
That's the binary.
Because that's how we're rewarded financially to keep everything going. But realizing, like, I like the marathon version. It says stories, events mark the beginning and ending of chapters. And so looking at eye care, health care, it's different chapters in your life, right? So like there, you and I were talking about dry eye and who that goes into, and it's women over 40, right?
Yeah.
And then you had a dad euphemism you've got to share. What was your quote with your daughter? We were talking about your daughter. Like,
we were
just
talking
what
about
makes
daughter.
people different? What's
Yeah.
that wow factor that people have? And it's seeing the problems, being able to quickly solve it. And what's your quote that your
I
daughter
tell my
now
kids
says
all the
back
time
to?
that do what you need to do before you do what you want to do, and then you'll have plenty of time to do what you want to do. But if you do what you want to do first, right, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
So
That's good advice.
it's interesting that I'm constantly evaluating as we're talking, and all the examples that he used in the book are not even trilogies, right? Because Star Wars is a trilogy of a trilogy. There's 9
Right.
episodes.
Right.
And Harry Potter had 7,
Lots of
8
them.
books, 9 books, like, I mean, a bunch of books, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in every single one of those books, the guide and the hero failed multiple times,
For sure. Yeah.
right? I mean, Dumbledore was killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to advocate that we should die, but they lost. You know, Darth Vader won in some of the
Right.
stories, right? Until the rebellion and Luke was able to come back and do more. And so I think we want that quick win. We just want to win every time,
Yeah.
and not realizing that there's going to be struggles and ups and downs along the entire journey.
Yeah.
But
And when you
remembering
read-
this is practice. Like, you can
Yeah.
fail with patients. Treatments fail. I don't
All the
know
time.
if any of us have been really good at failure. That's also the seats that we sit in.
Yeah.
But it also, one thing back to the hero, he says, the hero is always the person pulling out their wallet to make a purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So stop losing problems. Stop losing sleep over our problems. Start losing sleep over your customers' problems.
Yeah, I
That's
highlighted
the
that
day your
one too.
business will transform into a brand customers love. Again, we went to school to be optometrists and give great care, not to be great marketers,
Right.
Daniel. So in working with optometrists, what's this aha moment that they get? Because I hate marketing. Like, I freaking Again, I went to optometry school.
You
I
hate
did not
bad
go
marketing. You hate bad marketing. It'll qualify it somewhat. Good marketing.
I always say to my co-founder Jen, I'm like, I can really good at ideas. Now I need
Yeah.
somebody to just go make them pretty.
Right. Yeah.
Like, go make this pretty. I always say that all the time.
Yeah. Go make it work is what
How
that
do
really
we
means,
make
right?
this pretty? Who
Yeah.
do we need in our wheelhouse? Who do we? Because again, this is all great, but how do we take action here?
Yeah.
Give us some steps for marketing that we can better our practice, better our patients. Help
Yeah.
our practices thrive. That's what we want to do in order to take more care of of our patients.
Yeah. It sounds like you need a guide.
Nicely done. I like that.
You like that transition? No, the
Always
first
be
thing.
nice.
closing. Look at
What,
that.
yeah. What I would
We'll
look.
go.
What I would look at first is what I just said. Is kind of that. Identify the patient journey, whether it's a kiddo, a family, older adults. Identify what's happening in their lives now that would actually stimulate them to set an appointment with you guys. What's going on? What's something emotional, something physical happens, which triggers that emotional reaction, which then triggers the philosophical, which I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't miss my, be able to drive my kids or my grandkids around. That's a philosophical statement. So identifying those things, and then you're just looking at every little interaction with a patient, from social media, from your website, all the way down to turning them over to optical for the sale, establishing the next appointment, asking for a referral, and you're essentially just kind of brand scripting almost every little spot. And you're saying, in this moment, is this messaging about me, or is this connecting with my customer or my patient? And you're hitting each of those phases. There's a little tool. It's in the book. It's the last half where it's very tactical, and it's the one-liner. Did y'all catch the one-liner concept?
Yeah.
Towards the very end. The one-liner concept is it's a mini brand script is what I call it. Essentially, it's you're identifying the problem, you're stating the solution, and then you're stating the outcome, which is like the positive stakes, the success. So identify the problem. I understand headaches are awful, that you're in front of your screen all the time. We've got this tool or this product called NeuroLens, which is pretty amazing. I think it'll help you, so that You can sit in front of your screen and not worry about losing sleep at night or ruining your evening because you have a migraine, whatever. That's a very simple thing. And you can just go through your whole life cycle of every interaction you have with a patient or customer. And you can use those little one-liners. Don't make it sound like it's recorded or scripted, but you can make it sound pretty natural, but use that concept. That to me is the immediate thing from Storybrand, is to try to figure out how can I tweak all the little messaging that I have. It's a big deal to go to your website and say, I'm going to redo my whole website with Storybrand. That's a lot of work. And the cool thing is, the AI thing is interesting. I've kind of tinkered with it a little bit. There is an AI machine that Donald Miller has built, where he built it, so it's got all of his tools in it. And you can plug in a bunch of prompts and it actually spits something out. I've
Yeah, I
tinkered
did
with
it. It was actually really quick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I just did it.
Yeah. So there are some ways. It needs to be, just like any AI at this point, it needs to be worked a little bit so it doesn't feel too much like a machine. However, it really is pretty intuitive in how it can actually kind of get you at least to halfway there. So that's a pretty tactical tool as well to play with,
Yeah.
to get started.
Well,
I
and
thought it
also, go ahead.
I was going to say, going back to AI, because I liked that tool as well,
Yeah.
but I wanted to see what I was doing, because I'm not good when somebody gives me a script and says read script. So I recorded myself giving this, like, every spiel that I give, the glaucoma spiel, the diabetes spiel, like all of them, and had it transcribed and then dumped it into ChatGPT and said, hey, right, using the 7 principles of Storybrand from Donald Miller's Storybrand, take this, like, refine this, verbiage into a script. And so it was kind of neat because it started with what I already start with, so the change jump was less than, and it wasn't a theoretical, I should say this or should say that. I just took what I said. And it was kind of neat to see how a lot of the components were there, maybe just not in the right set in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one too, Claude AI. I don't know if you played with that one. I actually prefer that over chat because it's a little more conversational. They're all very similar and they're all getting better just daily. But Storybrand is one that, Storybrand's a closed model, so it's not perusing the web to actually build its model. It's only using the Storybrand framework, so it'll be a little bit more refined with Storybrand. However, chat, Claude, both of them will do it if you do just like you did, Aaron. That works out well too. But you can do it with all the stuff. You can pop in your brand script if you've written one and say, hey, use this for my social media, use this for a wireframe for my website, and it'll do a decent job. I still like getting a professional to look at it and say, hey, make this sound like me, give this my tone. But for those that just want to play around with it and see what they can do, it's pretty powerful, and it's going to be better in another year, 2 years. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think if we break it down to, so the hero can also change in the story, right? So one thing is the patient where I need to order my contacts. I don't want to spend more than I have to. This should be easier to order my contacts.
Yep.
Right? That's something, in essence, with Doctor Contact Lens and what we've done.
For your doctors,
So when you need to order your contacts, you can do so from your doctor, knowing you're getting the best price. You can do so in one click, delivered straight to your door, and then the doctors can control the health of the patient. It's interesting how we see so many patients and take such good care of them, to then have these encounters end like they do day in and day out. And what Aaron and Kyle and I think are bringing hopefully to you is look back at the conversations you're having. Slow down, cut out words, understand the pauses, and you'll see patients become happier. You'll see your reviews go up. You'll see that you'll run more on time. Your staff will be happier. These are little things that you can do in your team meetings that go a long way. So I don't want this to look at this big hill that you have to climb up. Like you said, Daniel, like you don't have to redo your website right now.
Right.
It could start on how you're answering the phone.
Yeah.
Inviting them right then into their story of better vision. That's what you're providing.
Yeah. You want to think the long game. I think that's a really big. I would have thought we went that way with the conversation, but I really like that. Just you're building a relationship with your patients. You really are. You're trying to establish yourself. If you think about any movie, any story, the guide has to be prevalent throughout the whole story. Or you think about like a good movie is Tommy Boy. He mentions it. So
yeah, a lot in the book. It's really funny.
Well, who would you think is the guide in Tommy Boy? I'm curious who y'all think that is, if you've seen it.
The
The
guide,
guide
in
is
Tommy
the
Boy?
guy that goes on the tour with him.
I don't think it is. I think it's his dad. So if you think about the story, his dad passes away at the very beginning, right? But he's about to turn over the company to him. This is a giveaway. If you haven't seen
Yeah.
Tommy Boy, it's 20-something
Where have you
years
been?
old. It's
Where
time to
have you
go
been?
see it.
Yeah, let's go.
It's just,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Gen X movie. But his dad passes away, and then at the very end, when he's on the boat, and he talks to his dad, and he's like, he starts sharing. That's that moment. That's that climactic scene where the guide comes back and kind of reaffirms you made it, right? You transformed. You became the person you're trying. So that's why it'll ruin movies, because you'll watch movies and all of a sudden you'll see, oh, that guy's he's going to be dead in a couple of minutes because he's not relevant to the story.
That makes sense, because the guide always seems like they're challenging, right? They're supportive, but in a tough love kind of way, right? Kind of like parents and children, right?
Yeah.
I don't let my kids be happy because I'm the horrible jerk that won't let them eat ice cream for dinner. You have to actually eat food, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense on Tommy Boy.
Yeah, I think of thinking about our patients as this is the relationship you're trying to build, and so this is not it's not just a one-time encounter. Hopefully you buy something, see you next time maybe. It's what can I do to help solve this problem now, because I know that you'll trust me to solve the next thing that you have for your family, for your kids, whoever, for your referrals, for your parents, whoever you send our way. That's who we're going to work with.
And I also see so many people dismissing patients because they're not buying, or like they went to 1-800 that time and bought.
Yeah.
And I think we're being too hard on that, and then not reflecting enough of bringing it back to the why.
Yeah.
And maybe that patient did leave in that moment because you were running an hour behind. You had a new front desk girl that didn't explain it well, and away they went with a copy of their prescription. But then you have two of their kiddos in a myopia management program. They're coming back for a dry eye evaluation. It was okay. So I think it's giving yourself more grace in all of this, that what you do is special. If you can keep it simple, clarify, and again, be on a journey with the patient through their vision life cycle, right?
Yeah.
From the first time they get their first pair of glasses to their first pair of contacts to then essentially going on for LASIK and then cataract surgery. Hopefully they don't have a retinal detachment along the way. And right? So just looking at this journey through your practice, we saw that in the practice that I purchased, where he was aging out with his practice, and I came in and rejuvenated it with younger patients. That's also the journey of your practice. Is it's not looking at where you are in 90 days, it's looking at where you're going to be in 5, 10, 20, another generation of the practice.
Yeah.
So I've got a question I'm passing on from Kyle. So if you're watching this, Kyle has no power in the middle of Nebraska. He did his best, and he says now it's kicking him out and not letting him back in, so he's texting me his comments. And because that's what nerds do, right? Yeah. And I mean that in the most loving way, Kyle. So he said, let's make sure we talk about how we use the Storybrand principle as a leadership tool, especially internally for our staff, because we're selling to them as much as we're selling to our patients. I think I alluded to it a little bit when I talked about my kids when I worked that way, but in the practices you worked with, Daniel, have you addressed that with the owner, the leadership team in a practice, how they can use this principle working with the rest of their team?
Not specific in that way. So a couple things we've done is look at it in hiring. So when you're hiring, when you're putting out job descriptions, that's a good way to attract the right people too, to make sure that you kind of find out where they are, right? What's the thing they're trying to solve? And that's really important for hiring the right people. I think you can apply it in approaching your mission statements and your core values and stuff too. So you're trying to use some of that framework as well. The here's the problem that we want to solve. Here's the aspirational identity we're trying to create for our patients. So that's a mission type statement. But yeah, 100%. If you just kind of use the framework as it's not really just a marketing only thing. It certainly applies. It just should guide how you actually communicate in any capacity with patients, employees, candidates, vendors, that sort of thing. You're just really trying to do your best to use the framework to actually improve your communication. It's really all it is. To me, I just call it kind of the gel that holds everything together in every communication piece. It just works. Story works. We know that. We know people pay attention to story. Why would we think any else? Why would we think any other framework would work? Let's just do it.
They don't pay attention to your story.
Not your story, it's their story.
They pay attention to their
That's
story.
right.
To their stories.
How does it matter to them? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I outside the practice of my kids, I used this last night. You see behind me, I'm sitting in New York in the Oakley showroom because we're about ready tomorrow to have a big meeting. We've got about 50 docs and staff coming in to put on. Alex Martin and I are teaching the business of optometry, art of optical management, vision source course, and so I was having an adult beverage last night with some of my good friends, and was thinking through the 7 steps, and so I'm going to try to actively use those right in that order as I'm telling stories at the bar. And the stories were much more engaging.
It's true. It works.
I've become a better storyteller over a beer.
Isn't that amazing? Well, like in all seriousness, in doing speeches. So if you are a facilitator, a teacher, or a keynote speaker, it's a great way. If you're a pastor, those are things that you can use. You apply the story in that framework, and people they start to listen. It's bizarre how that works.
It is funny. So we're getting close to the hour. And we've talked through this framework, but I don't think we've taken the time to really just spell out what are the 7 steps.
Actual steps. Yeah.
The actual steps, just so people can follow along. So as the expert, Daniel, I'll let you
sure
give this to
So you identify who the character is. We talked about that quite a bit. The hero. The hero has a problem. They want something. They have a problem. So that's the first 2 parts. So you got to identify what the hero wants. What's the problem they're trying to solve? Problems kind of 3 parts: philosophical, external, internal, philosophical. They make the decision based on the internal component. They encounter a guide. That's you. And you give them the authority. You give them the confidence you can solve their problem by using empathy. And he calls it competency in the new book. The old book, he called it authority. Same concept, very similar. He just likes competency. It gets a little less harsh, I think. You give them a plan. The guide gives them a plan, usually 3 or 4 step plan, nothing more than that. Very simple. If you confuse, you lose. Don't do that. 3-step plan, and then a call to action. And then that results either in success or failure. So their story will either end in success or failure. That's the stakes of the story. Ideally, if they follow what we give them as their guides, they'll see success. And he does add a little addendum that's beyond the 7-part piece, which is that we're trying to, there's identity transformation, right? You're trying to transform them from confused or distraught or depressed about their vision to hopeful or excited or whatever the transformation is. And that's the identity transformation. That's kind of the whole picture put into 1 part. So there's your 7 parts plus the little bonus at the end.
Love that.
But you got to read the book.
You do have to read the book. It's a good read. I just ordered it. I've got 15
clip
copies, I
notes
think,
for
showing up
everybody
at the
here.
office.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Well, we're doing it as this is our book club for the office. I've got about 20 books showing up in a couple days.
Nice.
And
Nice.
I didn't give them the heads up, so this is how I know if they listen, right?
Yeah.
They either know that it's coming or they're like, why do we have all these books?
Right.
But it's a pretty easy read.
It is.
For the concepts he goes through, it's a very, very easy read and applicable. So I'm excited to have them walk through and read it.
Well, he writes it. I mean, Donald Miller, he says it in there. He writes it from a Storybrand perspective. So that's why you can read it, because you can engage, because there's good stories, there's good framework, and it moves fast.
Well, I'm taking a lot away. So
Good.
thank you, Daniel, for the recommendation. And
Absolutely.
we can find you on how?
I'm on LinkedIn, so Daniel Palmer, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm connected to a lot of you guys. My website is Morther, MORETHER.com. That's a whole story behind that name. There's a story that involves vision, actually, because my daughter did it and she had some vision issues when she was born. So it's on the website. You got to go read it there. But that's where you can find me, Morther.com or LinkedIn. I'm there.
That did help me win an argument, by the way, because my wife is an English teacher.
See, now you're going to get us in trouble.
Morther is a word, yeah.
Oh, Morther. I thought you mean that the framework helped you win.
Oh no,
Yeah, don't-
no! I lose.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no,
lose
that's
arguments
just coming,
consistently.
Daniel.
but
That's
more than-
coming.
That's on the way.
That's on the
Yeah, if
bonus
you use the
content.
framework to argue with your wife, that's probably not the best use of the framework. I'll tell you that right now.
No.
From experience.
Yeah.
I think that's a great ending.
Even when you win, you lose, right? That's one of those.
Just lose. Just say I lose. That's all. Just go with that.
You're right,
Plead the
honey.
fifth. Yeah, that's right.
Well, there we have another episode of the Book Nerds podcast. Again, where entrepreneurs are helping optometrists be better in their practices to serve their patients. So thanks all for listening, and look out for April's book club. Book is coming out soon.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me
Thanks,
on the call. Yep. See y'all.
Take care. Bye.